Good evening. Our top story. Well, Indian diplomats in Pakistan have been harassed yet again. India has sent a note verbal and unsigned diplomatic note to Pakistan. This incident took place on the 21st of December when 4 Indian diplomats were travelling to Peshawar. Although they had permission for the Peshawar visit, they were harassed and had to cut short their visit. Now, WION has learnt that the diplomats were followed by men on a motorcycle. Their vehicles were stopped and they were questioned for half an hour on the road. The Pakistani officials who stopped them warned the Indian diplomats to return to Islamabad. The Indian team included the Deputy High Commissioner J.P. Singh and a second secretary ranked diplomat as well. The diplomats were returning from an area called Kisa Bazaar near Hotel Pearl Continental when their vehicle was stopped. India has asked Pakistan's foreign ministry to investigate the incident. The letter asked Pakistan to quote-unquote sensitize on extending due courtesies and adequate protocol to visiting diplomats as per norms, unquote. Now, the Pakistani foreign ministry, however, has denied these allegations.
Reports from in the Indian media, now it's being reported on the Pakistan side as well. The Indian side has alleged that Pakistani side is allegedly harassing diplomats in Islamabad, and now we've seen reports in New Delhi as well. How do you comment on that?
Pakistan stands for upholding the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and has always endeavored to facilitate the working of the Indian High Commission in Islamabad within the diplomatic norms, international law and practices. It remains our position that the smooth and unhindered functioning of diplomatic missions is essential.
All right, and joining us to talk a little bit more about this is Ahmed Shaheen, senior journalist joining us from Lahore in Pakistan. Also joining us is G. Parthasarthi, former ambassador. Thank you both for talking to us this evening. Now, Ambassador Parthasarthi, your thoughts on what we are seeing and hearing about, once again, Indian diplomats being harassed in Pakistan. This was not just anyone, but the Deputy High Commissioner, J.P. Singh himself, who was part of this team that was visiting Peshawar.
Well, let me tell you something, that following each other or keeping surveillance is common. It's common to both sides. There is a basic problem, however, and in this case, if you're traveling outside Islamabad or even to Rawalpindi, you have to obtain written approval of the Foreign Office, and the Foreign Office informs the intelligence and other local agencies. That's a similar practice that we follow, but there is a difference. You see, in the case of India, the intelligence agencies function, they are civilian and they function under the control of the Home Ministry and therefore the civilian authority. And the Home Ministry is very careful not to do anything which affects the diplomatic relations.
Yes.
And this has been admitted to me when my people were followed by even people in Nawaz Sharif's office, that the surveillance of Indian diplomats in Pakistan is not done by civilian intelligence agencies, but by the ISI. And there have been several occasions when my diplomats had been harassed.
Okay.
But a certain stage came when we decided to reciprocate.
Right.
So I'm not aware of what policy is now, but I'm certain there will be reciprocal action.
Yes.
But doing this to a deputy high commissioner is rather odd, because the High Commissioner and his deputy
I take your point.
are followed discreetly. I've been followed discreetly.
Yes,
that's a fact of life.
Absolutely. Well, that's correct.
But this is...
yes, that officials on both sides, of course, tailed.
This is not done.
Yes, Ahmed Shaheen, let me take that. Yes, Ahmed Shaheen, let me take that to you, that it's obviously normal that senior officials on both sides are tailed. And, you know, I mean, if you go outside Islamabad, you have to take permission. If you go outside New Delhi, as a Pakistani official, you have to take permission. Having said that, in the past, there's been gas lines that have been cut to Indian homes in Pakistan. We've seen a lot of back and forth on, you know, how officials have been harassed within their own homes, doorbells have been rung, and so on and so forth. Where do you think this is heading?
Obviously, this is not the first time such things have happened on either side of the border. In March this year, children of Pakistani diplomats minutes on the roads. The Pakistani media extensively covered that. Pakistani media is not covering this news. The Indian media is. But it's happening on both sides of the border. And it is harassment.
Right.
And crime against those who are protected by the Vienna Convention. And it's despicable. And it's kind of like chest beating both the countries, the intelligence agencies, chest beating to their diplomats, and also being oppressors blatantly and showing how they're keeping, for example, Pakistan keeping India in line and India keeping Pakistan in line. I mean, these are messengers. You never shoot the messengers.
Okay, your line is freezing a bit, Emmer, so I'm just going to take that to G. Parthasarathy. And Ambassador Parthasarathy, I want to take this beyond what we're seeing of, diplomats being harassed. Now, official sources here on the Indian side are indicating that until the election process, no big initiative will be expected as far as the Indo-Pakistan talks are concerned, and there's been no reduction of cross-border terror. And Kartarpur was not a diplomatic initiative, but a cultural one. How do you see this? What senior officials or top sources on the Indian side are saying?
Look, I think it is quite clear, as I said, surveillance is part of the course as a diplomat. With it, I've spent 5.5 years in Pakistan. But certain red lines are not crossed. For example, there was an instance when my wife was harassed and we took it up very seriously. That's when some of the guys, over a drink, they told me, look, in our case, this is the military, they are a law unto themselves. And the surveillance is done very crudely by the ISI.
Right.
So I think what has happened is unfortunate.
Right.
That the Deputy High Commissioner should be stopped.
Right.
Is a serious matter. And I am sure that if Delhi behaves the way I expect them to, there will be a reciprocity on this, and we will do what is necessary.
All right, Ambassador Parthasarathy and Ahmed Shaheen, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Now, in 2 decades on, Russian President Vladimir Putin is still a formidable player in global politics. But has he lost some ground at home? And is the Kremlin looking for ways to let Putin stay on in power? Well, the Speaker of Russia's legislature has raised the possibility of changing the constitution as speculation grows that Kremlin is considering ways to allow President Putin to remain in power well beyond the end of his current tenure. Putin's current term ends in 2024. The constitution requires him to step down after that. The constitution was drafted 25 years ago. Kremlin's tight control of political system would make it easy to approve changes to the constitution. When Putin was elected to his present 6-year term, he had indicated that he had no intention of changing the constitution, but speculation over the possibility of amendments continues. Earlier this month, Putin said that the constitution is not some fossilized legal construct, but a living, developing organism. Political analysts and government insiders have been discussing the possibility of constitutional change for months now, as the focus is on the end of Putin's term grows. Putin, now 66 years old, has ruled Russia virtually unchallenged for the last 18 years. A number of significant changes have been made over the past 25 years, including increasing the presidential term from 4 to 6 years, while that of Duma, or the legislature in parliament, has also grown to 5 years. And other important changes included uniting the Supreme and arbitration courts, appointing presidential senators, and revising the list of federal subjects. The possibilities that now emerge are to elevate an advisory body called the State Council to become the supreme authority, with Putin as the head. This, if he does not become the president again, then the presidency would be stripped of many powers, and the advisory council under Putin would be the final authority. And joining us to talk a little bit more about this is Lucy Taylor, who joins us from Moscow. And Lucy, thanks for talking to us this evening. Now, how credible are these reports, the speculation that the constitution in Russia may be tweaked to keep President Putin in power for as long as he wants?
Well, this is all just speculation at the moment. It comes from a meeting between senior politicians. The Kremlin released the details and the opening comments from that meeting. President Vladimir Putin was present, but it wasn't him who said this. It was as you were saying, the Speaker of the State Duma, which is the lower house of Parliament. who raised the question of the Constitution. He said it's been 25 years now exactly since the Constitution was first written in Russia, and he said there were questions, or there may be questions, about the norms and provisions of the Constitution, about how effective they still are, about whether they're still relevant today. And he proposed the possibility of bringing together constitutional judges, scholars and experts to discuss questions going forward and see if any changes needed to be made. Now, he didn't mention presidential term limits in particular, but that's what a lot of the speculation has centred around, because that's something that there has been speculation about for months now, ever since Vladimir Putin won the previous election in March. He's got another 6 years in power from that date. But he is now approaching, this should be, according to the Constitution, his final term in power. He will have to pass on to the next person under the current Constitution. So that question of succession is one that many people are discussing, and even for this to be raised, even though it wasn't by the president himself, has had a lot of people here questioning whether this is now on the cards, whether there will be an attempt to try to change the Constitution to allow him to stay on for longer in power. But we haven't had any reaction from President Vladimir Putin. No reaction from him was listed in that those opening comments which the Kremlin released. What we have heard is from his spokesman, who said it is not the position for now, and there are no plans to go ahead with this for now.
No plans to go ahead with this for now. Lucy Taylor, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Well, in other news now, after the US and Australia, now Britain too has raised concerns over Chinese telecom technology giant Huawei's plans for a rollout of 5G network. Now, Huawei continues to defend its global ambitions and network in the face of Western fears that it could function as a Trojan horse for the Chinese state. In the latest development, top sources in New Delhi have also told WION that India is studying Huawei's offer as well. This comes even as questions are being raised as to whether India will prevent Huawei from conducting 5G trials or ignore national security concerns that are being voiced. Countries like the United States, Australia, New Zealand and Britain have pulled back from using Huawei's products amidst growing concerns over security issues posed by Huawei in Japan, France, Germany and the Czech Republic. Just today, the British Defence Secretary voiced grave concerns over Huawei, over the firm's role in the UK's 5G upgrade as well. And while US President Donald Trump is also considering an executive order that would bar US companies from using telecommunication equipment made by Huawei. Now, Reuters has reported that the executive order would invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It gives the American president the authority to regulate commerce in response to a national emergency that threatens the US. Sources have told Reuters that the order has been in consideration for 8 months. The US has alleged that the two companies work for the Chinese government and that their equipment could be used to spy on Americans. Once passed, the executive order will push two of China's biggest telecommunication companies out of the United States. Remember, this comes amidst the trade war between China and the US as well. Now, here's some bad news for, e-retailers in India. The Indian government has announced certain changes for the e-commerce sector, and according to a new rule, any entity which is related to an e-commerce platform will not be able to sell on that site. It means that an e-commerce giant who was selling household products and groceries under their own brand will face a huge setback. The Indian government has prohibited e-commerce platforms from giving any kind of preferential treatment to the supplier. It means that tough days are ahead for all kinds of cashback, exclusive sales and brand launches. The new framework will come into force on the 1st of February. It is the brick and mortar business that will gain massively from these changes. Traders have often complained of losing out on customers as e-retailers were selling products at a much cheaper price. Traders have complained how e-commerce entities were distorting the market by sourcing and selling goods on their own platforms. Remember, it is a violation of India's foreign direct investment policy, which does not allow foreign direct investment in the business-to-consumer e-commerce. The Indian government allows 100% foreign direct investment in business-to-business e-commerce, however. And as expected, the Confederation of All India Traders has welcomed the move. It said that New Delhi will bring this, the new move will bring more clarity. It accused e-commerce companies of adopting all kinds of tactics to control and dominate retail trade in India. The Indian government is working on a separate e-commerce policy as well. Now, it has been 15 days since a group of miners got trapped in a shaft in the Indian state of Meghalaya. No contact has been established with the miners so far, and rescue officials are losing hope with every passing day. Here's a report.
Hopes of survival for the miners stuck in a shaft in Meghalaya has been dimming, with the rescue officials hinting at the worst.
पानी की सतह पे हल्की सी बैड ब्रेथ है वहाँ पे, महक है वहाँ, और वहाँ पे ज़्यादा देर तक रह पाना भी थोड़ा मुश्किल हो रहा है.
In the East Jantia hills of Meghalaya, a rescue operation has been underway for close to a fortnight now, as over a dozen miners are believed to be trapped in a rat hole. This vertical boring in the hinterlands of northeast Indian state is where the miners are trapped. This pit is a part of several illegal mines across the state. The hapless miners have been trapped in one such mine since December 13. They got trapped after water from a nearby river flooded the digging. Even though teams of the National Disaster Response Force have been deployed to look for the miners, there are several factors that are hampering the operation. What's making matters worse is adverse weather conditions like heavy rains and strong winds. The water level in Mine 2 is over 70 feet, but the divers available can only dive 30 feet deep. The rescue teams have inadequate equipment, and they wait for powerful water pumps that can pull out water at a faster rate. There are other logistical issues like the non-availability of map of the illegal rat hole pits and tunnels. Rat hole mining is a fraud business that involves the digging of small vertical pits to access minerals and moving them through tunnels bored for the purpose. This form of mining is illegal as it has been banned by the National Green Tribunal in 2014. However, mining contractors persist with this practice, which puts the life of miners at great risk. So why is the government snoring? Why has equipment not reached at the site to help the rescue teams? Parallels are being drawn with the Thai soccer team's rescue operations from earlier this year. World-class equipment and volunteers flew in from across the globe. Specialists from near and far volunteered to get the junior team out. The situation in Meghalaya is very grim. There are no deep divers present at the spot, as was the case in Thailand. While contact was established with the Thai team, no contact has been made with the miners so far. While July's Tham Luang cave rescue saw a global rescue operation to locate 13 boys who had been trapped inside a cave, after a fortnight-long operation, the boys were finally rescued. But these miners have hardly had such luck and still await equipment like water pumps. Shortage of machinery, an ill-equipped team, worsening weather conditions and an ominous signal from the rescue officials. Almost a fortnight after the miners went missing, not much has worked in their favour. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
In other news now, and the cold wave has intensified across northern India. The mercury in several areas of Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir recorded sub-zero temperatures. Now, Himachal's Lahore, Spiti, Kullu, Kinnaur, Chamba and Shimla districts were among the worst affected. In the last 24 hours, Lahore, Spiti recorded a temperature of minus 11.1 degrees Celsius. Manali, which received fresh snowfall, recorded minus 14 degrees Celsius temperature. The famous Dal Lake in Srinagar has been partially frozen. Snowfall in Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh affected the temperatures in the adjoining states of Punjab, Haryana and Delhi as well as Uttar Pradesh. The minimum temperature in New Delhi was recorded at 3.7 degrees Celsius. This is 4 notches below the season's average. Air quality in the Indian national capital has also remained in the very poor category. And Punjab's Amritsar recorded a temperature of 0.4 degrees Celsius, while Haryana's Hisar recorded minus 1 degree Celsius. All of this added to the public inconvenience. A number of trains and flights were also delayed across North India. And the Indian Met Department said that the cold wave is likely to continue for the next 3 days, adding that the temperature might also dip in parts of Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Jharkhand and Maharashtra between 28th to 30th of December. Now, after Alphabet's Waymo built a city to train driverless cars, South Korea has unveiled its own testing field for autonomous vehicles. K-City is equipped with modern technology to assist self-driving cars. Take a look.
It has every feature of a modern city. Cafes, expressways and buildings. Yet it is one of a kind. Welcome to K-City, South Korea's recently established simulated town designed for self-driving tests. Roughly an 80-minute drive from capital Seoul, it's the largest test field for autonomous cars. Spread over 320,000 square meters, the test field has a simulating community, parking lot, a downtown area and an expressway. Built at a cost of more than $11 million, K-City provides 35 kinds of road test facilities, including railway crossings, trees and even potholes. South Korea aims to dominate the autonomous vehicle technology through the project.
인력적으로나 경제적으로 기반이 약한 중소기업이나 대학교 훨씬 더 압축해서 실험할 수 있고 그다음에 더 많은 데이터를 확보함으로써 더 좋은 기술 개발을 할 수 있을 것으로 기대하고 있습니다.
Simulated shops line up on both sides of the streets to check the car's ability to recognize the environment. Signboards and toll gates have also been set up across the field. In fact, K-City boasts of the world's first 5G network, though in an early stage. 4 signal base stations, 29 surveillance cameras and a control center enable exchange of information between cars under test and vehicles operated by humans. However, the field lacks natural environment simulation. To tackle this, the project's second phase will be carried out to simulate severe weather such as rain, snow and fog. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.